In just a few days, world leaders will come together in Glasgow for COP26 in the hope of tackling the climate crisis, including Prince William, who has criticised pursuing space tourism over helping this planet first.
Yes, and our guest from Insulate Britain, Tracey Mallaghan, stirred up a reaction yesterday when she suggested
just a bit of a reaction.
Do better with it, just a bit, yeah. We could do better with the money being spent on billionaires like Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson and Elon Musk going to space. Let's take a look.
I would like to know where you take the money from to insulate every single hope. That is what Insulate
I take
Britain
it from
wants.
the people going into space on rockets shaped like to be honest with you. Come on, we're living in a mad world. This has got to stop.
Sorry, was that a serious answer?
Do you really think that's not a serious answer?
Yes, I do.
Do you think that in a world that is burning, we should have people flying up to space in rockets?
I mean, she has a bit of a point, doesn't she? I mean, you know, we're talking about climate change all the time now. We've just been talking this morning about the economic crisis, how people haven't got much money. Is this the right way forward? Well, joining us to discuss this from South London is Dr. Martin Archer, space physicist at Imperial College London, who says climate change monitoring requires space. And joining us from Newport in South Wales is Professor Mike Berners-Lee, author of There Is No Planet B, who says space travel is a complete disregard of our planet. Let's come to you first, Professor Mike Berners-Lee. I mean, but sometimes space travel or space exploration can be a good thing, can't it?
Yeah, I'm all for a piece of serious scientific space exploration, but the space tourism that we're seeing here is a completely different thing. So, you know, I think I'd adopt a slightly different tone, perhaps from Tracey Mallaghan, but in very broad terms, you know, she is right, because when you look at the very basic physics of it, you find that Star Trek is fiction, and the idea of humans in any kind of serious numbers going off and finding a planet B really is a complete nonsense. If you just look at the very simple kinetic energy required to get a person traveling at a speed that might take you to another planet that's worth living on, at the very best, you've got to get up to about 1/10 of the speed of light. And the energy that requires just for a person flying through space in their underwear without a spaceship at that speed is the same amount that about half a million people on planet Earth get through in a year. So it's a completely ridiculous amount of energy. And right now, you know, we are in a climate emergency, and there are some exciting new technologies that we need practically like crazy, not for 5 generations' time, but for right now, this decade. And for me, it's a real shame to see the billionaires with their spare cash pushing it that way. It shows a real disregard for the people on the planet and the state of the planet.
But isn't that the point? They're billionaires. It is their cash. I mean, Jeff Bezos may well give a lot of money to charity. I don't know. I'm sure he probably does. We know Richard Branson is very charitable. Does lots of charity work. Why shouldn't they, if they want to? Just like somebody down the road might get themselves a big flashy car and we go, oh, God, do they need that big flashy car? Somebody might go on a 5-star cruise around the world. Do they really need to do that? What's that doing to the climate? It's all relative, isn't it? They're absolutely allowed to spend their money how they wish.
That's a very good question. I mean, another take on wealth is that if you're going to have that much money, actually, it's a decision to take on more responsibility for the custodianship of the world, and with that wealth comes a responsibility. Okay. And you know, one or two of the richest people in the world are making a serious effort to push their billions in a very positive direction. But if you wanted to put your spare billions in the most environmentally destructive cause you could, space tourism would be it.
Right, OK. Well, Dr. Martin Archer, let's come to you for your reaction on that, the most environmentally destructive thing you can put your money into. We look at the environmental impact of sending people into space, and also, you know, the difference that money could make if it was spent elsewhere.
Well, you know, I think a lot of people don't realise that, you know, a lot of the fuels that we use to send rockets into space actually don't create any CO2 at all. Like, one of the main ones is literally just combining hydrogen and oxygen. So what you see coming out of the rocket is actually just water vapor, not CO2. And the same is true for hydrogen. So, you know, the carbon footprint of space travel is not huge. I would say, to Mike's point, we're not planning on sending people to another planet. That is ridiculous. I do agree with you. That is not the purpose of space at the moment. And the fact that all of the evidence that we have for climate change really comes from satellite data and putting stuff into space. Well, a lot of these companies, what they're doing is by having a private business and generating revenue through potentially space tourism in the future, they're then funneling that through to their contracts that they have with NASA, with the contracts that they have to put other satellites up. And that's only going to help with all the Earth observation and the research that we're doing into combat climate change.
Do you think that there's a difference between, that kind of exploration, that kind of research, and the space tourism aspect of it, where it is a bit more just for fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely hugely excited by space tourism the way it is at the moment. It's hugely inaccessible. But, it's like Adil's point, it's their money. And if they're coming up or trying to develop a business model that's going to enable more science and allow kind of access to space for the research side of things to be cheaper than it currently is through, say, national and international space agencies, where you've got a huge amount of bureaucracy, then I'm all for that. And for instance, look at SpaceX. They're a private company. They've developed one of the most powerful rockets humanity has ever seen. And that is really going to change the game for the scientific research and understanding the formation of our solar system in ways that the technology available currently to NASA and ESA just isn't.
I saw the professor shaking his head quite a few times there. Not convinced by any of this, are you?
Well, I'm convinced by some of it. I think serious space exploration is I can see that there are benefits to that, and I can see some spin-off technologies from the tourism. Just on the carbon footprint point, that really is factually wrong. If you look, whilst it's true that something like hydrogen doesn't emit CO2 as it burns, it's not true to say that it hasn't got a huge carbon footprint, because it takes energy to create that hydrogen. You could make it from renewable electricity, but if you do that, then somebody else has to use coal instead of the renewable electricity that you're using up to make the hydrogen for the space travel. So, I spend a lot of my life looking at carbon footprints of different things, and I've written books on it and stuff. And specifically when it comes to Jeff Bezos's space tourism, for example, it turns out to be a carbon footprint of something like every minute you're burning through something like the average per passenger, you're burning through something like the average UK person's annual carbon footprint. That's per minute. So it's a huge carbon footprint, not because of the direct emissions of the spacecraft, but because of the emissions that have to take place to create the fuel to create the spacecraft.
I just can't get that image out of my head now whenever I see that shuttle, to be honest. It just, it looks, she was right, what she said yesterday, wasn't she? It does look...
About what it looks like.
What it looks like, yeah. Listen, we're going to leave it there, but Professor Berners-Lee, just very quickly, if Bezos got in touch with you and said, hey, look, you've been chosen to get on a shuttle next month to go and have a look at space, would you really turn it down? Would you say, no, I don't believe in this. I don't want to go and see what these other planets, and I don't want to see what these satellites look like up there. I'm not interested.
I would say that it's not worth it. I would say actually there are a lot of different treats I could have. There are 100 fascinating things to explore on planet Earth. Some scuba diving maybe, but absolutely not that one. I would say put your money instead to some of the technologies we really urgently need. For example, how to put a long-haul aeroplane in the sky without burning fossil fuel. Right. How to revolutionize our shipping to use hydrogen, how to properly insulate our homes, how to make our solar panels more efficient. I mean, there are technologies that are really exciting that we absolutely need right now.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you both for joining us, Professor Mike Berners-Lee and Dr. Martin Archer this morning. Would you turn it down if Bezos gave you a sort of
I would not want to go into space. No, I mean, I'm not very good with heights as it is. So I think, to be fair, I think that
you're not looking down. It's not like being on the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. I mean, before we go, actually, let's just come back. Who are we going back to on this one? We're going back to Mike Berners-Lee just to get another reaction from you. Do you agree with Insulate Britain when they were talking about, the impact of it?
Would have put the tone a bit differently, but I absolutely, it's a very high impact activity. It is, I think I think what the billionaires are doing is primarily just a space hobby. And I do think it sends a message of how little they might be thinking about the lives of other people around the world, because you could do a lot for a very large number of people's lives with those spare billions. And in terms of the carbon footprint, it's enormous right at a time when we absolutely don't need it. It shows a real carelessness there, and they are role models for many people. And in terms of the wasted opportunity to go and push another technology, maybe one of the ones that we so urgently need, it's just such a shame to be doing something. Frankly, it is a bit puerile when there are really some important things they could be doing with the money.
And just a final reaction from you as well, Dr. Martin Archer, in that case.
I mean, I just don't see why we have to have this very kind of binary argument. Why do we have to pick between space and our planet? We're going to be doing both. And by kind of giving swathes of the space industry, by painting that with this space tourism thing, which is an absolute minority, it's kind of sending a bad message about all of the amazing and really important stuff that we do in space to actually help our planet and humanity. So I think we really do need both.
Okay. Thank you both very much. In that case, would you go up there then?
Hey, what?
Would you go up to space?
I would. I'm torn. I look at this. In the end, it's very rich guys getting their egos out, aren't they? They're just flashing their egos out. They just want to see. They want to be the next Neil Armstrong. I kind of get it. That's all it really is. And I think if someone had said to me, "Do you want to go up to space, have a look on a space shuttle?" I would.